I think we are ready to start. Namaste, everybody. Good to see you again. It's our last meeting in this long journey that started last year. And today we will remember together this journey, the steps of this journey. Sure, even if there are lots of subjects that we studied together, we just scratch a little the surface of the teachings. We wanted that just to have some notions about what is Shaivism and what it's all about, but every lesson deserves his own course or workshop. But I think what we learn together, it's useful in your future studies when you will read some books on Shaivism or you will go to other workshops. It will be a little bit easier because you already have all the things that are important. So our first lesson was that introduction in which we tried to establish what is Shaivism, what it's all about. We spoke about Tantra because Shaivism, actually they say it's more correct to say is the non-dual Kashmir Shaivism, because in Kashmir there is also worse, also at that time, a dual Shaivism, that Shaiva Siddhanta, in which the goal was to be a Shiva, not Shiva, but like Shiva. So for this reason it's considered dualist, because at some point there will be a lot of beings like Shiva. But in non-dual Kashmir Shaivism there is only Shiva. So you can be the same Shiva, not different Shiva. So we made that distinction between Advaita, in which the the body are illusions that must be transcended in isolation from the world. And in Tantra, it's everything is divine and everything can be used to reach a higher consciousness. So Shaivism, it's a tantric way, and try to use all the things that we have in our lives to gain more consciousness, to gain more bliss. Shiva is just, for sure, is just a name for the supreme consciousness, for that God that we think about in other religions. So for sure, from the philosophical point of view, we don't have to be attached by the name. We can call it anything. Actually, Ramakrishna, a great modern saint from India, had a very beautiful metaphor. He said, when you call your mother, she doesn't care what name you use, because she will know that you call her. So even if you speak another language or use a different name for a mother, the mother will know that you call her he was referring to Kali and responded to some people that were worried that if they don't know the real name or the real way to call the Divine Mother will not answer. So with Shiva it's the same. Even if we don't refer to him as Shiva or as Supreme Consciousness or Maheshvara or Umapati or Bhairava or all the other names that he is called, he doesn't matter because he is our deep essence. Like Shankara said that Chidananda Rupah Shivoham Shivoham, I am consciousness and bliss. This is my nature, and that is Shiva. In that first lesson, we also spoke a little about different schools of Shaivism, and for sure, when we speak about these schools of Shaivism, we have to understand that they were not separated. Abhinavagupta, for example, the great master of Shaivism, was initiated in all the schools, so the teachings that he passed further to Kshemaraja and other masters were a blend of all these traditions. So they were not like so clear-cut separated. But for sure we can speak about Spanda. Spanda that we know very well in Hridaya because we try to feel that tremor of the heart, but at origin it was a Shaivit school that had the origin in a text that give the name to the school, and that text is Spanda Karika. Before that, the same master that revealed the teachings in Spanda Karika revealed also Shiva Sutra, which is a very beautiful Shaivit text with profound teachings. And these two books, these two text books, maybe it's a bit too much to say about them because they are relatively short, but both of them have extensive commentaries from different masters, and sure, they have a very profound teaching in them. Then another school is Pratyabhijna, which is the school of recognition. Also, this school has an origin text, or the text that give the name to the school. The text is called the recognition, stanzas on recognition of the God, Ishvara Pratyabhijna Karika, written by Utpaladeva. Before him, his master, Somanatha, also wrote a long text called Shiva Drishti, the vision of Shiva, in which he laid the principles that later were used by Utpaladeva in this Ishvara Pratyabhijna. The essence of this school is that enlightenment essence, at the essence, is just the recognition of our true nature, which is consciousness and bliss, which is Shiva. So, and sure, we will see later why is this important, because when later on we will speak about malas, those impurities, we'll see that the most important or the most the one that generates all the illusion of duality, it's that anavamala, which it's actually avidya, ignorance, in the sense that is not that we don't know who we are, but we know in a wrong way who we are, because we identify ourselves with the body, with personality, with memories, with things that we know, with our state of mind and such and such. And for this reason, we forget who we really are, who we are before we identify with all those dual states. So Pratyabhishna says that if you meditate like we do in Hridaya, you will discover what is your real nature, and it's actually an act of recognition. It's not that it's something new or something that it's outside of us, but you recognize what you really are. It's like, I don't know, someone had an accident and he has amnesia. He doesn't remember who he is, and at some point the memory came back and suddenly he recognized, okay, this is who am I, who I am. Sure, from the point of view of Hridaya and meditation, you will not be something. You just are. You are not someone or something. You just are. So these two are, I think, the most important, but sure, there are some more schools that are more esoteric, like Krama. In Krama, they speak about Kali, but not in the way that usually it's about Kali, that goddess with the tongue out, with cleaver in a hand, severed head in the other, and such and such. But here Kali, it's the segmentation or the different stages in time of this getting back to our pure consciousness. So we start from the outside world. Every stage has a moment of creation, maintaining, resorption, and then a void. And each of these stages are represented by a Kali. So there are 12 Kalis, and each of them help us to get closer to the divine consciousness by helping us to recognize more and more profound aspects of our being. So Krama, the name actually means sequence or cycle, and it's a very profound and esoteric teaching. Actually, Sahaja teaches some things about Kalis in his workshop, The Art of Awareness, in which he speaks about Vijnana Bhairava, and in that context he speaks about these Kalis. Another school is Kaula or Kula, the family, which was the most controversial because they tried to go beyond the traditions and taboos in the society, especially in the India of that period, in which all the people were separated in castes and you cannot go beyond your status in the world, and they rejected all those. And for this reason, they were like feared or not seen with good eyes, like, let's put it like this. But also they had very deep teachings, and some parts of the sexual rituals are used by them especially. And then we have Trika, which is actually the synthesis made by Abhinavagupta. Trika means Trinity. All the three things that in Shaivism are abundant. So we have the three realities, Shiva, Shakti, and Nara. Shiva, the supreme consciousness, Shakti is the energy or the immanent in creation, and Nara or Anu is the individual soul. Then we have the three powers, Icha, the power of will, Jnana, the power of knowledge, and Kriya, the power of action. We have also the three entities, Pati, Pasha, and Pashu. Pati means the master, Pasha means the bondage, the noose or the chains, and Pashu is the soul that is in chains. So then we have the three goddesses, Para, which is the transcendent one, Para Apara, which is in between transcendent and immanent, and Apara Shakti, which is the one present in the world, immanence, and so on and so forth. There are lots of three things. Like I said, they like to put them in trees, not in trees like in the, you understand, like tree paths. So the practice that we did in that first lesson was about finding balance between two movements, inhalation and exhalation, which is the method that is very praised in Vijnana Bhairava. A lot of, because you understand Vijnana Bhairava, it's about 112 methods of meditation. It's not quite meditation because some of them are just being aware in the middle of your everyday activities, but some of them are actual methods that you can use to improve your meditation. And this awareness of the space between breathings, it's one of these methods that it's actually presented in multiple sutras. So from those 112, quite a few of them speak about finding this place in between breathings, in between thoughts, in between perceptions, a lot of these in-betweens, because actually they say that Hridaya, the heart, is that in-between space, is that like if you think about all the things that we experience in the world are appearing in some kind of space, even if it's not the actual space, but they have to exist in a space. So to go to that space in which all these things exist, you have to look between the things that are in that space. So for this reason, when we speak about the space of the heart, Hritakasha, or the Chidakasha, the space of consciousness, these are the spaces in which the thoughts, the emotions, the sensations appear. But because we are paying more attention to the things that appear in that space, we are not aware of the space itself. So we are not aware of our heart because we pay more attention to the emotions that appear in that space of the heart or in that space of consciousness, emotion, thoughts, and such and such. So this kind of method in which you are aware of that gap between inhalation and exhalation, that becomes later a gap between thoughts, and you become more aware that there is a silence in which these thoughts appear. And then instead of paying attention to the thoughts that are like a noise, you start to pay more attention to the silence, which is actually this Hritakasha, this space of the heart, or Chidakasha, the space of consciousness. So in that practice, we used those sutras from Vijnana to discover this inner space of consciousness. And then in the second lesson, we spoke a lot about bhavana. We saw how that concept, which means like contemplative meditation, creative intention, a meditative realization, a mystical intuition, these all are ways to describe what this bhavana is. We were not so much aware of this bhavana because usually it was translated like a meditation, a kind of meditation. And for sure, it's a kind of meditation in which we use our mind and the power that mind has to create a reality or to discover a reality, to experience something that we usually don't experience. And if you remember, we spoke about, for example, the way in which is presented in Yoga Sutras, in that sutra in which Patanjali speaks about, for example, speaks about mantra Om. He said that you have to do japa, repetition of the mantra, but maintaining the meaning of the mantra in your mind. So it's not just repeating the mantra, but you have to keep the meaning of the mantra in your mind. And the meaning of the mantra was that is the name of the God, is the name of Ishvara. In Yoga Sutras, Om is considered the mantra that calls upon Ishvara, is the name of Ishvara. So when you do japa with Om, you have to keep that meaning in your mind. And again, in Yoga Sutra appears in multiple sutras, but another way in which is used is that Pratipaksha Bhavana. When something that disturbs your silence appear, think about the opposite. So if you are angry, keep your mind towards calmness, like this. So if you have this power to, it's like a visualization, it's like you create that, or maybe more exactly, you focus your awareness to that reality that it's ever present. So then we spoke about Ribujita, which is another text recommended by Ramana Maharshi, in which they spoke about this bhavana as the way in which you refer to yourself. So a bhavana, for example, a classical bhavana from Ribujita is that Tat Vam Asi, I am God, I am divine, or Aham Brahma Asmi, I am Brahman. All these are bhavanas in which, sure, you don't imagine that you are Brahman, it's your reality, but you have to keep this intention, this mystical intuition of your true reality in your mind to make it so. Otherwise, if you are not doing this, you're doing the bhavana in reverse. I am Sebastian, I am this body, I am this man, and such and such. So it's also a bhavana, it's also a way in which you see yourself. But sure, it's not the true reality of your existence. So, and sure, we kept on giving examples of this bhavana, and the practice was actually from Shankara, which was not actual Kashmiri Shaiva. He was nevertheless a Shaiva, and he had that very beautiful poem Nirvana Shatakam, 6 verses about Nirvana, about that higher state of consciousness that has that recurring theme, Chidananda Rupah Shivoham Shivoham. I am consciousness and bliss without form, I'm Shiva. So this is bhavana. For sure, it's used in various ways as a modality to keep your mind towards your goal. And for us is Atman, or if we keep the way in which is called in Shaivism, it's Shiva. So we are Shiva. We have to keep this Shivoham, I am Shiva, in our mind. Our mind sure uses this Vikalpa. Vikalpa in Sanskrit, in yogi tradition and Shaivism, means mental construct, a concept. So, and for this reason, we tend to think about bhavana like, I don't know, like a suggestion or auto-suggestion. So I am in the, like it appears in, I don't know, The Secret or that kind. I have $1 million or something like this. But again, bhavana uses what is actually real and manifest that reality by focusing our awareness on that reality. Is like when you say Chidananda Rupah, I am consciousness and bliss, you actually try to be in that moment consciousness and bliss. Even if you don't know how it is actually, you can, like, because this is the reason that I like to call it mystical intuition, you have like an intuition about what is to be consciousness and bliss. Even if you didn't experience it in full or in full of awareness, you know what is to be awareness, you know what is to be happy, so you have this intuition about how it is to be consciousness and bliss. For this reason, Abhinavagupta says that bhavana starts when the mind's when the mind ends or when the mind stops. And actually bhavana, it's a quite a profound meditation in which you have to go beyond the usual chatter of the mind to actually experience, be what you set your mind to. And later on, when we will find about the upayas, the paths, we will see that bhavana is actually used on Shaktopaya, on the way of energy, or on the way in which is used Jnana Shakti, the power of knowledge. So it's not something easy to achieve, but starting from this small and easy Chidananda Rupa or Aham Brahma Asmi or all those great affirmations, we can reach that profound experience. And then in the third lesson, we spoke about tattvas. Actually, the third and the fourth lessons were dedicated to tattvas. Tattvas were those principles of realities, or that essence of reality, and they describe like the way in which the world and manifestation is actually created or bring about. And sure, they are just, and the name says all, that they are just principles. They are not they are just like guiding lines. They are not separated very strictly, and the method that the practice that we did when we learned about those tattvas was about that tattva samhara, that resorption of tattvas, going from Prithivi, which is actually the most exterior aspect of consciousness, going from this most exterior to the most interior, to the most profound aspect of consciousness, which is actually Shiva. And sure, if you remember, those tattvas are Mahabhutas, the great elements, which are those that in other texts are referred like tattvas: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So those are considered the Mahabhutas, the great elements, and they are the building blocks of the reality that we experience through our senses. Then we have the Tanmatras, which are the subtle elements, which are the qualities that our senses are capable of perceiving, and those subtle elements are describing that reality that we experience through our senses. Then we have the Karmendriyas and Gyanendriyas, the organs of action and the organs of knowledge. Those are the instruments that allows the consciousness to interact with the world, acknowledging, knowing what is happening, and then acting about using that knowledge. And those are 20 tattvas. Then we have the inner instrument, Antahkarana, which is composed from manas, ahamkara, and buddhi. And we saw Manas is that lower mind, the mind that interacts with the world, the mind of pleasure and suffering, the mind that judges everything but I like this or I don't like this. Then is the ego. The actual word means the instrument of the pure I. Aham is I, and ahamkara means the instrument of this I. So the ego, sure, we see the ego like the big enemy that keep us from what is divine, but you see, it is actually the instrument by which the pure consciousness interact with the world. For this reason, it's called the I which is in relation with the objectivity, with the objects of the world. Because in contrast, we have Purusha, which is I connected with or oriented towards subjectivity, towards consciousness. So it's like two kind of consciousness, that one looks towards the world and the one that looks toward the divine. And sure, we have Buddhi, which is the higher intellect, the higher mind that has principles. This is good, this is bad, this is what you have to do, this is what you don't have to do. And sure, this Buddhi is made by our beliefs and our core faith. And like Manas, it can evolve. So Manas, when it's purified and evolves, starts to like better things or higher things or spiritual things, and dislike things that get him away from the spirituality. And sure enough, Buddhi actually again evolves, because at first maybe we are just deciding what is good or what is wrong by using our ego or pleasure and displeasure, but then we start to learn about all these things, and we start to know them by experience, and we start to have this discernment. Discernment is that power that separates reality from irreality, good from bad and such. And then the next two tattvas are Prakriti and Purusha. Prakriti is the nature, the one that creates the world, and Purusha is the one that enjoys the creation, the one that experiences the creation. This is the way in which is looked upon in Samkhya and in Yoga Sutras, in the classical yoga that uses Samkhya. So Purusha is the one that enjoys the world, and Prakriti is the one that creates the world. Purusha is the spirit and Prakriti is the materiality, the nature. But from the Shaiva point of view, Purusha is just another form of consciousness, still bound, still not free, still not at the level of Brahman or the godness, because Purusha is limited by the 5 kanchukas, the 5 bonds that limits the divine consciousness, and Maya. So from this reason, some says that there are 6 kanchukas, 6 limitations. Some says that Maya creates the other 5, so there are 5 kanchukas and Maya. Regardless, Maya is the great mystery, because Maya makes the unity or the oneness of the divine, makes it in the multiplicity of souls, of Purushas. And for this reason, it's called the great mystery, the great illusion that transforms unity in multiplicity. And again, Maya manifests those limitations. So from omniscience, we just know some things. From omnipotence, we can do only some things. From eternity, we are bound by a time we are born, live for a while, and then we die, and such and such. So these are the kind of limitation. And then we have the pure tattvas, which are in the domain of the pure consciousness. And these pure tattvas start with Shuddha Vidya, the pure knowledge, which is considered the first step in the liberation. In practically, we are beyond Maya now, but still we are not fully Shiva, because even if it's a pure knowledge, there is still a small degree of separation, of limitation. And then we have Ishvara, which means the great master of the universe. And then we have Sadashiva, the pure Shiva. And then we have Shiva and Shakti. Even if they are presented like two tattvas, two different tattvas, they are always together and they are always one. It's like the consciousness, the pure consciousness, which is called Paramashiva, which is the supreme Shiva, has to manifest polarity like a magnet that has two poles. You cannot have a magnet or a magnet that don't have two poles. Even if you crack it and make two magnets, the two magnets still have two poles. They have north and south. So it's like this kind of thing is Shiva and Shakti. They cannot be separated. They are always together, like the two poles of creation, consciousness and energy, Prakasha and Vimarsha, and such and such. So those were the lessons 3 and 4. Then in the lesson 5, we spoke about malas. So those impurities, they are called pashus or pashas, chains that bind the consciousness and make it to appear like limited. So again, the first and most important of these chains or these malas is the ignorance. It's called Anavamala because it's Anu, the individuality. So it's the impurity that creates this illusion of I am a small thing. Anu actually means something small, something little. So this impurity creates this sensation that I am not all things, I am just something. And from this, they explain that from this point of view, when you experience that you are limited and small and you don't feel whole again, you feel that void inside of you that has to be filled with all the things that we consider that we need to feel again, to feel whole. So we put there objects, we put persons, we put achievements, and consider them mine. This is mine. So from this point of view, we start to confuse or to have this confusion between being and having. And we start to think more about what we have and less about what we are. And this world in which we live is obsessed with what we have. So people are described not from the point of view of being, but from the point of view of having. And again, it's not just about you have a car or a house, but you have, I don't know, some knowledge or some power or those kind of things. But again, if you refer to yourself like from this point of view of me and mine, then you are in this Anavamala. And then we have Maya Mala, which is the impurity of illusion, is the one that creates the duality and the difference. This is me, that is you, this is me, that is some other thing, and such. It's this kind. And then we have Karma Mala, the impurity of action, in which we are attached to the fruits of our actions. So, and again, is the way in which we grow up to be obsessed with what we get from our action. We are not satisfied by just acting, doing something. We are focused on what we gain from doing that something. So a lot of people are going to do a job not because they enjoy what they do, but because they are paid. And with the money, they will do something else. So instead of enjoying themselves in what they do, they are thinking about the moment where they will be paid and they will have a holiday, or they will have the weekend. And so this is karma. This is karma mala, because in this way you bind yourself to the fruits of the action, and from this the reincarnation and all the things that are associated by karma. In that lesson we spoke about a little about those observers, those witnesses. In Shaivism, there are different levels of consciousness, because sure, it's about where your awareness is placed. And for this reason, we have these different observers, different experiencers, or I don't know how to call them. And I will not tell them again, because sure, it's a bit complicated and it's hard to do it in a very short time, but they are called Sakala, which is the usual person that experiences the world, that is in the world. Then we have one called Pralaya Kala, which is the observer of the void. Actually, in that state, you don't have any thoughts, it's just void. Then we have Vijnana Kala, which is the usual person that meditates. When you meditate enough, you start to have these deeper experiences, and those are observed by this Vijnana Kala. Then we have mantra Pramatri, which is at the level of Shuddha Vidya. It's one that goes beyond illusion in Samadhi. Then we have mantra Mantreshvara, mantra Maheshvara, and then Shiva Pramatri, which is the supreme witness. But the practice that we did on that occasion referred to those 5 koshas and the way in which we can have some knowledge about where we are in our meditation. So if you remember, those koshas means things that kosha means like I don't have right now the term. It's like a coat. Yes, it's like something. It's like a body. Let's say it like this. It's like a body. Actually, the first one is actually our physical body. It's called Annamaya Kosha. It's made by the food that we eat. This is the Anna. So is the body made from the food. It's the actually physical body. So for a lot of us, the meditation starts with our physical body. We sit in a posture and we feel the sensations in our body. And slowly our body becomes more relaxed. We find that balance between firmness and relaxation, that Stiram Sukham that Patanjali spoke about, and then our body, our physical body as a sensations gradually dissolves. And we experience the next body, which is Pranamaya Kosha, the body of energy. We start to feel the movement of energy. Our body, the way in which we experience the body is more fluid, is like flowing, and we start to feel, I don't know, chakras, nadis, the way the energy feels and flows, and this is Pranamaya Kosha. Then we have Manomaya Kosha, the mind body, which is the quality of our thoughts. Our thoughts can be full of light or darker or agitated or calm, and this experience of the quality of our mind, it's the experience in this mental body, Mano Maya Kosha. Maya Kosha means an illusory body, so it's not a real body, because we are consciousness and bliss. We don't have actually a body. And then we have Vijnana Maya Kosha, which is the body of the pure knowledge, in which in meditation we experience the purity and clarity. It's like our mind, it's in that stillness, and we feel that light and purity and this inner clarity. Usually we have this experience when we understand something, but we understand that something at the most deep level, and we have what we call an enlightenment, that moment of now I understand that is the Vijnana Maya Kosha. But in meditation there is a moment of clarity, and the mind is at peace, it's still, and this is Vijnana Maya Kosha. We experience that peacefulness with this kind of body. And then there is Ananda Maya Kosha, the body of bliss, the body of happiness, because we start to experience that consciousness and bliss that we spoke about, because this Ananda Maya Kosha is the closest one to our true nature, which is Satchitananda, pure existence, pure consciousness, pure bliss. So in meditation we start to feel that happiness of being. Just being make us happy. We don't need anything. Just being means to be happy. It's not that kind of happiness that we usually think about, which is like a roller coaster. Now we are up, now we are down, but is that existential happiness. Just being means that you are happy. And the meditation, the practice tried to help us to be more aware of these levels that we experience in meditation. They are all present, so even if you get to the next level, you don't remain without a body, without a physical body. It's still there, but you are not aware of it. So when you experience like bhava samadhi, samadhi with eyes open, you experience all these sheets or all these koshas together in harmony. And then in the 6th lesson we learn about the 5 energies of Shiva, which are consciousness, Chit Shakti, bliss, Ananda Shakti, then the power of will, of pure intention, which is Icha Shakti, then Jnana Shakti, the power of knowledge, and then Kriya Shakti, the energy of action. And in that lesson we also spoke about the way in which the vowels are and the alphabet and the power of the letters are seen as a manifestation of these energies, because the vowels are regarded in Shaivism as the energy of Shiva, and the consonants are the Shakti. And combining vowels and consonants, you obtain the word, all the words that describe the word. So it's a very beautiful metaphor. And as a practice, we spoke about a small poem by Abhinavagupta called Anubhava Nivedana, the offering of the intimate experience, in which is described the Shambhavi Mudra, which is that kind of meditation with open eyes, focusing the attention or the awareness on your inner self, on Atman. And it's a way in which we can keep the awareness of the heart in the world. And in that short poem, it only had 4 verses, Abhinavagupta said something very beautiful, that all that the way in which you sit your body, it's a mudra, it's an attitude. So when you keep this awareness of the heart, every position in which your body sits, it's an actual mudra, or if you want, an asana. So if you are in that deep awareness, your body will adapt to let the energies move freely, and it's like practicing yoga every moment. And all the things that you speak are like mantras, full of power, because you speak them from that deep consciousness and awareness of the heart. And the breathing, it's yoga. The breathing is actually the union with all universe. It's the communion with all universe. And we try to feel that communion using the breathing. And then in the next lesson, we spoke about, in the lesson 5, we spoke about the 5 actions of Shiva, those Panchakritya, which are Srishti, emission, Sthiti, maintaining or expansion, then Samhara, retraction, resorption, dissolution, then Tirodhana, this concealing or disappearance or concealment, it's called in various ways: Tirodhana, Tirobhava, Nigraha, Vilaya. All these terms are about this action of Shiva that it's hiding his true nature. But then we have Anugraha, the grace, the revelation. So we spoke about these kind of actions because they are reflected in our lives. Every moment, or every perception, every thing that happens in our life is a manifestation of these 5 actions. When we open the eyes and perceive something, that something is created in our mind. Our senses gather some information and our mind creates that reality. And for a while we maintain that reality in our awareness, and then that reality is resorbed, it's dissolved again in that consciousness. And then we have 2 possibilities. The experience that we have can be a concealment, a Tirodhana, when it manifests in the way of samskara, of imprint, of a trace in our mind that manifests duality. I had this experience, or as grace or as revelation, all things are consciousness. And the practice that we did at that moment was that manifesting of these 5 actions in our consciousness by creating inner situation, choosing that situation that has some emotion, was emotionally charged, and then maintain that memory in our mind for a while, experiencing it, and then resorbing, dissolving that experience in our consciousness, and then being aware of the samskara, of the trace that experience can leave in our mind, because those samskaras then will influence us later. So we used a method that is described in Pratyabhijna Hridaya, a text by Kshemaraja, the heart of recognition. And then there he said that we have to dissolve these samskaras that create duality and suffering, to dissolve them by a process of sudden digestion. He said, like you eat that emotion, you eat it and get it back to your consciousness, because you are aware that that emotion is just another way of consciousness to manifest. Is not dual, is not different. And sure, the way in which we do this is by bringing awareness, because usually when we have this kind of powerful emotions, we want to get rid of them, to forget about them, to swipe them under the rug and forget about them. But in this way, bringing awareness, looking at that trace, because you see, if it's painful, because usually this kind of emotions are the ones that affects us most. If it's a painful emotion, regardless what made it appear, the trace, the energy that describes that emotion, that we will be imprinted in our subconsciousness or our mind stuff, has some quality to it. So if we can be aware of that quality and digest it, eat it, like this is the term that Chemaraja used it, like devouring those traces, those energies, then we are freed and we are free of them. Because those samskaras then create karma and all the things. So it's a very powerful way to deal with our emotions if we have this capacity, this power to bring the consciousness to that kind of sometimes raw emotion. And then in the 8th lesson we spoke about the 4 paths, the 4 upayas, and actually in that lesson we spoke a lot about the grace and the openness to grace, because that openness to grace separates different disciples. So if we are the most open to grace, even a small word from a master or anything can bring us to liberation, to the highest consciousness. Otherwise, being not so open, we have to practice. And sure, for us it's difficult to understand that this openness to grace make the difference, because we are used with this kind of mentality, everybody can do anything. Just work, and you can do anything. And for sure, what is happening by practicing different techniques and different methods, we just increase our openness to this grace that allows us to have a more profound consciousness, and then arrive at that point in which in Shambhava Upaya just our intention, just our power of will get us to the goal. Until that, there are some practices, and the ones that we usually do and are more aware of them are the lowest from the point of view of Shaiva. And the lowest doesn't mean that you are not good enough or something like this. It's just that is what you can do at this point with your openness. And for sure, for our egos, it's a little bit difficult to accept that we are still at the beginning of the path. For sure, we have some moments when our openness to grace is more it's bigger. So we have our moments of grace, and I think everybody has his moment of grace. But otherwise, we have to work with ourselves to increase that openness. And those paths, Shambhavopaya, the path of Shiva, Shaktopaya, the path of Shakti, and Anavopaya, the path of Anu, of individual, spoke about those. And sure, there is an Anupaya, the wayless way, the way without a way, in which you just are. You don't have to, even in Shambhavopaya, even if you don't practice something, you have to have that intention, to have that power of will. But in Anupaya, you just exist. And the meditation was about Ajapa Gayatri, that unspoken mantra, which is Soham or Hamsa. And we use those sutras from Vijnana Bhairava. And there it's spelled Sa when you exhale, Ha when you inhale. And we saw that the actual mantra is in the heart when the two are meeting. So if you inhale Sa, and just when you start to exhale, there is Hamsa, that mantra. I am he, or he is me, or something like this. It's like in Shivoham, but it's Hamsa or Soham. When they meet in the heart is Hamsa. When they meet in the Dvadachanta, in that point which can be in Sahasrara, then it's Soham. And in the 9th lesson, we spoke about the 5 avashtas, the 5 states of awareness, Jagrat, which is the waking state, then Swapna, which is the dreaming state, then Shushumti, which is the profound sleep, then Turiya, which is the 4th, close to Samadhi, and then Turyatita, beyond Turiya, which is like Samadhi with open eyes. And the practice was Krama Mudra, that going in, going out, going in, going out. So entering deeper in meditation, then opening the eyes to experience the world and feeling how the consciousness go outside and then go back in. This practice help us to find the balance between the experience with open eyes and the experience in meditation, which help us to keep the awareness of the heart in the everyday life. And I think it's a very good way to end a meditation. So if you are feeling that you were closer to the Hridaya, to the heart, then just letting the eyes open, getting in contact with the outer world, you try to keep that awareness. And sure, usually the mind will get you outside, but then you understand the process. It's finding this balance. In the lesson 10, we spoke about Prakasha and Vimarsha. Prakasha meaning light, the light of consciousness, and Vimarsha meaning the self-awareness. And then we spoke about the levels of the word. Paravak, which means the supreme word, and actually is the consciousness. Then Pashyanti, which is the visionary, the intuition, which is the level in which we get the intention to create, to speak, to do something. Then is Madhyama, the intermediate position, the middle one, in which we start to have some ideas, but is just in our consciousness, in our mind. And then Vaikari, the corporeal, the spoken one. And we use these levels of the word to understand, to better understand the way in which a mantra, working with a mantra, help us to reach that higher consciousness of Paravak, because we start with the uttering of the mantra. The tradition usually starts with actually saying the mantra with loud voice. Then sure, there are different degrees of loud voice. Some are with actually loud voice, some are whispered, mumbled like this, but it's actually uttering the word. Then we go to the Madhyama level, in which we say the mantra in our mind, but with the actual mantra we start to feel that inner sound, that vibration that is corresponding to that mantra. And this is the intermediate level in between, because there is the mantra which is spoken in our mind, but there is the energy of that mantra, which is that vibration, that anahata nada, that sound without cause. And then in Pashyanti we go to nada, to that inner sound which is beyond words, beyond letters. And then in Paravak is that silence from which all the mantras are manifested. So when you use a mantra, you can go all the way to the Supreme Consciousness if you're paying attention to these changes in the quality of the word, the way in which the word is manifested. And the 11th lesson was about Spanda, about that tremor, about that vibration, which is that pulsation or that movement of consciousness between existence and non-existence. And that movement between existence and non-existence, which is not actually a movement because there is no distance, there is no time. This is like the paradox of this vibration, because in the Supreme Consciousness there is no time, there is no space, so you cannot speak about a movement or a vibration. And regardless, there is this quality of Spanda which is existent and non-existent in the same time. And this is the support, the basis for all kind of vibrations that manifest energies and such. For this reason, Spanda is also called Vimarsha, the self-aware consciousness, because there is the essence of energy, of Shakti. It's called Svatantriya, the pure and free will of the Supreme Consciousness. It's called Visharga, the Supreme Creative Energy. It's called actually Spanda, it's called Hridaya, the heart of the divine. And Chidananda, the ocean of consciousness and bliss. So every time we become aware of this tremor of the heart, it's actually becoming aware of this way in which consciousness is and is not in the same time. Sata and asata is the Vedic way of putting things. Sata means existent and asata non-existent in the same time, which sure for our mind it's hard to grasp. And this was our journey in a very short story that we tell now. And like you see, there are a lot of concepts that describe this reality, which actually is quite simple. You can use only those two words that we repeated again and again in this lesson, which are consciousness and bliss. And Prakasha and Vimarsha, those two aspects, the light of consciousness and the self-awareness of that consciousness. And all those things that are explained are just expansions, expanding on those two things, which again are more commonly known as Shiva and Shakti, because Shiva is Prakasha, Shakti is Vimarsha. So Shiva is consciousness, Shakti is bliss, and this play of consciousness and bliss then starts to create the world in all those various ways of describing that creation, because sure, beyond those words there is mystery, this mystery of the divine that we try to grasp, to understand, but it's beyond our minds. If you have some things to say, to share, and if you are not, we will just we will do a short meditation of gratitude, because it was I don't know for you, but for me was quite an experience, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to learn about all those things with you.
Just a short meditation. I want to thank you for this wonderful journey, and that you created this room to share this knowledge, this wonderful, beautiful knowledge. Will there be a kind of container to ask questions or discuss a few things on the way, like outside of this seminar?
For sure, you have my email. Already some of you wrote to me, and I try to answer, not always in time, but I try to keep the answers as shortly as possible, and we can continue to communicate in this way. I want to do some more workshops. I think after this experience, because for me it was like a new experience, I think it's a better way to do like a workshop that is in a short period of time, like a weekend or so, because like you saw, we started like 100 people and now we are like 7 and some that we will watch the lesson recorded. So it was like 3 months, and it's, I think, for a lot of people, it's hard to keep the pace each week. So in the future, I think in autumn, I will try to make like a workshop. I have some things that I want to share with you, like that Shiva Sutra, which is a beautiful, so beautiful text, and again Spandakarikas, that Pratyabhijna that we used a small portion to do that practice. So I think from time to time I will do those workshops to keep the teaching going. But until then, write to me, or if you need to have a conversation, we can like first write to me, and then we can establish a meeting in, I don't know, Zoom and all. We live in a period of time in which we have a lot of possibilities to transcend the distance and communicate. So we can keep in touch in this way, or in the future workshops on the Shaivit subject.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to say thank you as well. I missed some of the lesson, but they are online, so
Yes,
it's
they are
great.
online, and anytime you want to.
Yeah, it was quite concrete. I already studied for quite a while Krishna, but each time a new person bring it with a different flavor. So I really appreciated your effort and all. Yeah, you brought so many topics. It was really nice. I really enjoyed it. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
just thank you and
Thank you, Ars.
congratulations to finish that cycle.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Yes, I actually next week I will start to do it in Romanian. But now it will be more easier, I think, because actually I was joking. Someone asked me, it will be the same things that you said in English, but I said no, because in Romania I speak much faster, so it will it'd be a lot more.
So you do it also online?
Yes, because it's easier to, in this way, it's easier to meet, even if the distance are. Sure, it's pleasant to be face to face and in the same hall, but like you see, there are from all over the world that can meet in this virtual space, and I think it's a beautiful metaphor of transcending the space and time. And so regardless that
It's amazing. This is making big difference for spirituality to spread.
for sure, because otherwise we had to organize something at Lojeval or in other place, and was too difficult.
Yeah. The same is the retreat that in the middle, at the beginning. Like, I was so happy I could join online. It was
Yes.
it's because for now I cannot travel so much, so it's just like grace. So anyway, thanks a lot.
Then let's end our journey with this gratitude. again, it was, I think, also for me, because like Manu said, I studied a lot, but when you have to give that knowledge away, you have to meditate more and understand more. And for this reason, I am grateful for your patience. And sure, my English, I hope it's better than when we started. So let's close our eyes and feel that gratitude, that openness to grace, because that openness to grace allows us to be in this moment Keeping the awareness of the divine grace, we open our eyes. And I wish you to continue to aspire to the divine knowledge and to live that consciousness and bliss, that Chidananda, in every moment of your life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sebastian.
Thank you, Kama.
Thank you. I wish the same for you.
Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you all. Namaste.
Namaste.